Um, anyways, I just want to quickly come on live for this short time. I want to let this pass today, but I've just been so pressed to talk about it. You know, Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, everyone. I mentioned that we'll try and come on live maybe today or, yeah. So I've not been able to come on live for the first time today. I've not been able to come on live. Just a moment, please. Let me send it to a couple of people. But that's totally fine. So I said we barely have a couple of days to the year 2026. So today is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we have 6 days to end year 2025. And I just want to prepare our mind as we journey into 2026. So we talked about peace in 2026. We talked about personal peace. Just doing a little, very short recap. Personal peace, and we talked about peace in our relationship. And we talked about how that when we have peace, that's only when we'll be able to give out peace to families. And when we have peace in our families, that's when we're able to give out peace to our society. And when we have peace in the society, that's when we are able to give peace to the world at large. So let's talk about, I talked about one way of giving peace is, or one way of getting peace, setting boundaries. In this year 2026 coming on board, you don't want to live your life carelessly without setting boundaries. So maybe today I would just explain, or on this life, I would just explain what boundaries means or what boundaries are, the types of boundaries, and how we can establish our boundaries. So boundaries, when you hear boundaries, we use boundaries in our lands, we use boundaries in whatever we do. These are lines that marks the limit. That's what boundaries are. They are all lines that marks the limit. So it's not so big, it's not so thick, it's not so thin, but it's there. It's a sign. So in a nutshell, I can say boundaries are sign. Thank you all so much for coming on board and preparing us for 2026. So, anybody who lives a life without boundaries is living a careless life. I'm sorry to say that. I don't mean to insult anybody, but I'm just trying to put it to your face that you're living a careless life. You're telling people that you're just an open field. They can come and do anything they like because nobody's going to ask them. You know why? Because you don't have boundaries. As you go into 2026, you need to set boundaries on things, on people, on actions, on everything. So these are the things that I've come to discuss with you. And I'm going to make this teaching a 3-part or a 4-part series just so we can completely delve into it and completely exhaust it. We'll extensively talk about setting boundaries. A lot of the time, people think when you set boundaries, you're being difficult, or when you set boundaries, it means you're a difficult person. No, you're not a difficult person. You're just telling people how to not act in your life and how to not act around you or in your space. most of the time when you see people who has been hurt and they end up misbehaving or they end up behaving in certain ways, is because they lack boundaries. People come into their lives, behave any how they like, and just go. No boundaries. Because boundaries is like a protection. It protects you against certain kind of thing. And this is not just about your personal life alone. I'm going to talk about boundaries as regard your finances. I'm going to talk about boundaries as regard your relationship, your sexual life. I'm going to talk about boundaries as it relates to your workplaces, your work life. So that's why I said I'm going to break it into a 3 or 4-part series because it's quite long. I have been preparing this topic because I want to teach it into 2026. Now, we live in a world where people behave anyhow. They don't know what hurts you, and they don't know what's not going to hurt you. They do things, they don't know how you're going to take it, and they don't know how you're going to take it. So your boundaries tell them what should be done and what should not be done in your life. I'm trying to introduce the topic called boundaries. I may come on live later again if I have the time, but if I don't have the time, let me just quickly introduce boundaries. Boundaries help us. It helps you to define what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And it also helps your personal growth. Have you noticed that for everything you didn't set boundaries, you didn't quite grow because there was no boundaries. But as soon as you set up your boundaries, you start growing. So boundaries help us to define what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. That's for boundaries. I've been able to explain. I said it's a sign that marks the limit. That is the definition, another definition of boundaries. And again, your boundaries, we're going to explain this, but I just want to quickly chip this in. It should be clear. It should be concrete, and it should be consistent. Don't set boundaries with certain people, and with other people, you don't set boundaries. They're going to do whatever they like to you. It's Christmas now. Let's even talk about this. It's Christmas now. Guess what? People reach out to you. Give me Christmas presents. Do Christmas for me. Do that for me. Do that for me. Yes, you oblige. You send so many money. You send so many messages during Christmas. Guess what? As we speak now, they are all enjoying themselves and doing everything they like. Boundaries. You know why? Because it's their personal time. So I've been able to explain to you what boundaries are or what boundary is, but there are different types of boundaries. There are different types of boundaries. That's why I said to you earlier on, I said I would be explaining the various types of boundaries. Because you can set boundaries in your relationship while your finance is lacking. You can't set boundaries in your finance while your work life is not completely balanced. So we need to set up these boundaries for 2026. It's going to help us scale through 2026 without stress, and it's going to help us be peaceful in 2026. I'm sorry if you hear noise from the background. So types of boundaries, one of the types of boundaries, I'm going to make sure I just explain just one tonight, so that tomorrow I'm going to come on live, we'll be able to talk about it properly. It's the physical boundaries. The physical boundaries, it explains your personal space and proximity. That's the physical boundaries. Anything that's got to do with physical. Now, let me break this into a little bit. Physical boundaries, how you allow people into your personal space. Let me tell you, you don't want to go into 2026 without setting a boundary. You don't want to do that. Set your boundaries, make it clear, make it concrete enough, and make your boundaries consistent. If it applies to A, it should apply to B, it should apply to C, to D, E, and F. To Z, your boundaries should apply to all of these people. Physical boundaries. You should know when it's appropriate for people to hug you, for people to have a handshake with you, for people to peck you. These are physical boundaries. Don't just be too open in 2026, allowing people, just any people, into your personal space. You're going to regret it if you live a life like that. Let that boundary be there. Let that boundary be there. Let that line. I don't care if it's thin or if it's thick. It doesn't matter. It should just be there that this far, no further. Because if you just allow people keep hugging you every single time they see you, or keep pecking you, having a handshake with you, and these boundaries should be respected. If you remember the time of COVID, the government had to give every one of us compulsory boundaries that we couldn't even hug our loved ones. You know why? It's for our safety. It's not because they hate you. So when you don't set boundaries in your life, it means you don't love yourself. You setting up boundaries, it means you're trying to protect yourself from certain things. In the time of COVID, they said, okay, please, we should limit the hugging. If it's not necessary, do not hug. Don't have a handshake. Don't go to parties. They gave us compulsory boundaries because the work was too much for the NHS. It was too much for all other medical system. Because you see people, you just hug them, you have handshake with them, you peck them, and the next thing, COVID. You were all right in the morning. After hugging people and doing all sorts, in the afternoon, you're no more all right. Because we didn't set boundaries. So boundaries, after all, is not wrong when you put boundaries to a lot of things. It's not wrong when you set boundaries. You're just being fair to yourself. Physical boundaries. Not everybody coming, you're hugging. Everyone coming, you're hugging. Everyone coming, you're hugging. It's not proper. In 2026, put physical boundaries to a lot of things. That, oh yeah, I love you. I like you. But this is it. Don't come too close. Don't every slightest opportunity you want to hug. I believe so much in, not so much, yes, I believe in the spiritual. Sometimes some hugs are not just perfect. Now let's take a scriptural reference. I would always say this, my platform is a platform for anybody. Anybody is welcome. Anybody is appreciated. You can learn from anybody, regardless our religion, regardless our background, regardless our race. Every single person God created is a working knowledge. So never despise anybody because of their color, their race, their nationality, their height or their size, whatever. Never despise. Every single person you meet on the road is a walking knowledge. So get that and get it clear. So back to my discussion. Example from the Bible, because I am a Christian by the grace of God, and I've got no problem with any other religion. We're talking about peace, and I believe we should be able to coexist without quarreling. And that's only when we have peace on our inside, that's when we are able to coexist. So part of the things that gives you peace is setting boundaries. So I'm talking about boundaries, and I'm going to be talking about boundaries till we get into 2026. So I'm talking about physical boundaries under the boundary discussion. Example, physical boundaries. Let's take a scriptural reference from the Bible. The same person who hugged Jesus was the same person who sold him for 30 pieces of silver. Yeah, the same person. What did he use? A hug. And he used that hug to identify who he's going to be selling. Because Jesus was with his disciples. So the people whom Judas has sold him to would not have known Jesus. But because he said, I'm going to hug him and I'm going to kiss him. When I hug him and kiss him, you would know that's the person I'm talking about. And he went there, he saw Jesus, he left the other co-disciples, he went and hugged Jesus and kissed him. Guess what? That was when they took Jesus away. So I just use this as an example. I know what happened there, what transpired there was it was divine. It was divine. Somehow, someday we'll talk about it if God tarries. If Jesus tarries rather. So setting boundaries is important. Physical boundaries. Not everybody you should hug. Not everybody you should have a handshake with. From my background, we believe in the spiritual sometimes from my background. And some marriages have been destroyed because of a demonic hug. Some relationship has been shattered because of unnecessary handshake. You don't keep hugging as a man married. You don't keep hugging everybody you see on the street, or every lady that comes to you, or every lady you know, like, oh, she's my friend. You're with your wife or your partner. The next thing, you just keep hugging everybody. It's going to send some sense of lack of trust. Like, why do you do that every time? Why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep hugging every single lady you meet on the street? But when you put certain boundaries, the partner standing with you would be able to say, yeah, I know him. He doesn't just hug everybody he sees. I believe this person is a special friend. But if you just keep opening your arm every single time without boundary, it's risky. Risky to your health, risky to your life, risky to your relationship, and risky to your future. Let's try and set boundaries as we go into 2026. Boundaries, again, like I'll say, is not lack of love. Boundaries is not lack of love. Boundaries is not being difficult. Boundary is not being arrogant or being rude. Boundary is just making your standard clear. That's what boundary is. Making your standard as clear as possible. As clear as possible. So don't feel Don't feel somehow when people think like, oh, he's a difficult person. Oh, she's a difficult person. No. When you set your boundaries and you make them clear, don't be bothered what people say. You're helping yourself. There are some people who never planned to cheat on their partner, but because of a single hug, they ended up cheating on their partner because of lack of boundary. They didn't plan to cheat on their partner. They just hugged someone and they'd be like, oh, I like this person's perfume. And before you know it, it just widened. And they ended up cheating on their partner. So please, as we go into 2021, let's watch it. Set clear and consistent boundaries. Be truthful to yourself. Tell yourself, this is how I want it to be. I don't want to go over my limit. I don't want to go over my mark. I don't want to go over the mark I have set, over the boundaries I've set. I don't want to go there. Set boundaries. We'll continue from there. We're going to make this life very short. We'll continue from there tomorrow morning or later if I have the chance. Later if I have the chance, I could come on live. Then we would continue. We'll talk about the second type or the second level of boundary, which is emotional boundary. So, a complete recap, I've been able to say boundary is that sign that marks the limit. Boundaries tells you what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Boundaries should be clear, it should be consistent, it should be concise, and boundaries should be your topmost priority as you go into 2026. One of your topmost priority as you go into 2026. Don't go into 2026 without setting clear and consistent boundaries. This is going to help you. We will extensively talk about boundaries, and don't feel bad for yourself when people think you're being too difficult because of your boundaries. No, they're not going to help you. You're helping yourself. Carry on with setting up clear and consistent boundaries. Know your limit. Do not go over your limit in 2026. It's going to steal your peace. Don't go over your limit. So I'm going to catch you again live, maybe today or tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.